شریف ایران، من شهریار افشار هستم، میزبان شما در برنامه Politics 365. امروز آقای جان گرام به برنامه ما پیوسته. آقای گرام قبلا برای وزارت خارجه آمریکا کار میکردن، یک عمری داشتن که واقعا ما میتونیم 100 عمر بکنیم و تمام ماجراهایی که ایشون داشتن سر عمرشون به پای ایشون نرسیم. کوه اورست رو رفتن بالا، هاروارد و استنفورد مدرک دارن، چندین سال گفتم وزارت خارجه آمریکا کار میکردن سراسر دنیا، و با یه مؤسسه غیر انتفاعی هم کار میکردن به اسم زرافه که هدفشون واقعا پیس بیلدینگ و واسطه بودن بین حزب‌ها و کشورهای مختلف که با هم دیگه اختلاف دارن سراسر دنیا نقشی داشتن، و مخصوصا حتی یه داستانه هم دارن که در ایران و خاورمیانه که واقعا خیلی جالبه. من میخواستم حتما آقای گرام رو دعوت کنم به برنامه. یه بلاگ هم دارن johngraham.org که میتونین به اون بلاگ مراجعه کنین و مقاله هایی که درباره روابط بین‌المللی ایشون مینویسن واقعا آشنایی بیشتر پیدا کنین. بقیه برنامه به انگلیسیه، خاطر از اون لازم ما رو ببخشین. John Graham, welcome to Politics 365. Thanks so much for joining us and sharing your life story with us, but really your experience and your perspective as a lifetime peace builder in the world, Middle East, and all the stories that I've heard. We talked offline. I wanted to kind of start with, as you're looking at the turbulent, after 45 years, the turbulent relationship between the U.S. and Iran, how would you, if you were advising President Biden or maybe President Trump one day, I don't know, about how to approach Iran, how to build peace with Iran, how to protect the Iranian people, the peace-loving Iranian people from the regime that's taken that country hostage for 45 years, according to the diaspora's perspective of it. How would you advise a U.S. policymaker on their approach to Iran?
That's a very difficult question. And I think there's a huge thing that American policymakers, Democrats and Republicans, are both missing. I was in Iran for the first time when I was just 23 years old. After I finished university, I hitchhiked around the world, literally hitchhiked around the world. And so I found myself hitchhiking across Iran. And it was a wonderful experience. Well, yes, I was in jail for 2 days for a visa infraction, but the Iranians let me off with a laugh, actually, after pulling me back to Tehran and giving me a lecture about obeying their laws. But in any case, I remember hitchhiking across Iran and stopping in the heat, and villagers coming out with pieces of watermelon and being friendly, et cetera, et cetera. That was my first experience with Iran. Anyway, that leads me to this point, is that I think American policymakers forget, or perhaps they're too dumb, they don't even know or remember that present-day Iran has a history that goes back thousands of years. It's one of the oldest places on earth, and the Persian Empire had glory and intensely interesting and powerful culture well before Columbus discovered America, 1,000 years before America discovered it, before Columbus or anyone discovered the United States and North America. And so there's a certain inbuilt pride one has to expect. The Iranian people are a proud people with a very rich history and a very rich culture. You don't have to be a professor to know that Iranian culture has permeated the world. So we forget that. And we treat Iran as just another hunk of desert. This time, however, it seems to be run by a bunch of crazies who want to destroy America. So we are in the current mess that we're in. Not that it's easy to get out of the current mess we're in, for example. I mean, Trump destroying the nuclear accord, I think, was a horrendous mistake. But what we miss is the fact that we're dealing with a very proud people who have every reason to be proud, and we should treat them that way. And we don't do that. And so if I was an Iranian policymaker or an Iranian citizen, despite my political beliefs, I would also feel a little bit No, a little bit angry, a little bit upset at how Americans are treating Iran without respect. So that's the first thing. Treat the Iranian people, despite their current leadership, which I don't have a lot of good wishes for, but treat the Iranian people as a proud, intelligent people with a rich background, and work from there. There are solutions. There's no question there are solutions. Second, look at Iran's place on the map. Iran is perfectly placed to be a center of power just from where it sits geographically. And it'll always be that. And so we need to understand the fact that we're dealing with a power center. And we can't expect Iran to be just another, oh, I don't know, Bahrain or someplace where they're just a hunk of desert and we can deal with them or not deal with them. No, no, no. Iran will always demand and should demand its place in the sun. Iran will always demand a significant place in the world just because of where they sit. And in addition, of course, oil wealth as well. So Iran is a powerful state. It deserves to be a powerful state. And in some ways, our mistakes in dealing with Iran are the same mistakes that I think we have in dealing with China, another country with thousands of years of rich history that we tend to ignore just because of what happened in the 17th and 18th centuries. Um, that's the first thing. Treat Iranians with respect and then start dealing with the political problems.
Right. So thank you for that explanation. I think most any Iranians that listen to this conversation would agree. It's also apparent that sometimes when you look at the 4-year election cycle of American presidents and the dictatorship runs of Iranian leaders, sometimes Iran is playing chess while America is playing checkers.
Yes.
Right? So it seems like American politics is based on re-election and popular wins. And look at now, Biden's number one priority is getting reelected. Before he can do anything or change the world, he has to get reelected. So
Yeah.
all policies are based on that. So I guess I want to would love your perspective on look at this moment in time, the complexity of dealing with Iran. You have Hamas and Hezbollah and Houthis threatening not only Israel but the world order and Middle East peace, undermining Middle East security. And they always introduce these groups as Iran-backed Houthis, Iran-backed Hezbollah, Iran-backed Hamas. You have the recent attack of Israel on the Syrian consulate office of Iran, and the world is gearing up for conflict with Iran. And I think most people would say Iran doesn't want and they've said so, any prolonged or any a hot war with Israel or America, because it seems like the number one objective is controlling their own people in Iran, not necessarily getting into a war with Israel or the US. How do you see that reconciliation? Like Iran pokes the bear and yet does not really want the bear to wake up and engage it.
Well, we're perilously close to miscalculation, I think, at the current moment. Someone's going to make a mistake, either our side or your side.
Not my side. Not my side. I just want to
Sorry,
say.
sorry. Someone's going to make a mistake,
Right.
either an Iranian policymaker or an American policymaker, and so we've got to tone down the rhetoric. And it's really hard now, especially after the Hamas attack, and also the fact that Iran is a major source of supplying weapons to Russia. That are killing Ukrainian soldiers who are our allies. So there's just a huge mess. And Iran and the U.S. are closer now to a hot war than we have been in a long time. So, first of all, we must be careful. And I do credit Biden. I acknowledge what you say about the fact that he's playing checkers because he has to deal with U.S. politics. And I regret that. But as you know, we have a democracy, and every 4 years we sidetrack everything in order to elect someone as president or senators or whatever. And in a way, that makes our foreign policy erratic. But on the other hand, it's who we are as a people. So that's just what it is. Uh, but I think there's got to be there's got to be continual efforts to find where we can to tone things down. Part of it is in cultural relations as we can find them through people like yourself, for example, and trade relationships where we can find them. Not much now. I agree. It's almost impossible to talk to a lot of entities in Iran for American business people or certainly American diplomats. At the same time, there needs to be some agreement that Iran has a sphere of influence, and we can't expect them to just cut the ties with Hezbollah and Hamas and the Houthis because Iran is a great power, and it has a circle of influence, and it will always have that circle of influence. We have to acknowledge that and deal with Iran as a power in the Middle East instead of trying to wipe them out.
Mm.
That's something that we could do, and in negotiations, that should be part of it. Negotiations, of course, will also, from our side anyway, have to involve the nuclear question. I don't think for a minute Iran really wants to start throwing nuclear weapons around because very quickly Iran would be obliterated either by Israeli nuclear weapons or somebody's nuclear weapons. But they have to have it as a threat because, and I don't, in a sense, I don't blame them. But we almost negotiated a deal with the Iranian government before Trump blew it all away. We need to go back to the Iranian nuclear agreement, if only to reduce or eliminate that source of tension. And it was a fair deal, I thought. I thought the original nuclear agreement was a pretty fair deal. That in return for foregoing an advance into nuclear weapons, enriching uranium to that level to make a weapon, and that at the same time Iran would pull back on some of its most energetic or dangerous adventures overseas with support for Hezbollah, et cetera,
Right.
et cetera.
So on that point, it's a very important point, the Iran deal. I can tell you, during that time, there were many vocal Iranians that were optimistic that this was a first step towards peace. And there were also many critics which today feel vindicated and even more heard in that they were against the Iran deal. And they felt the Iran deal, even though I understand the diplomatic value of it, concentrate. I heard John Kerry talk about it. Concentrate on the big fish, on the big nuclear issue, and then get to the ballistic missiles, then get to the regional insecurity, then get to the human rights, cultural trade, all that stuff. But without the nuclear issue, uh, at least there could be no peace, and we couldn't get to the other steps. But many people in the diaspora were very dead set against the Iran deal, and to this day they are. And it's a fundamental question of they feel that we should not engage with a terrorist regime, a autocratic regime. I will just kind of try to channel their energy and say the diaspora is pushing for regime change.
Yep.
But the American government, I've never heard the words regime change come out of Biden's mouth. And I think once he said it, but he quickly backtracked. So how do you reconcile those two? That the vast majority of Iranian diaspora want regime change, but whereas American governments and diplomats have to, or it seems like they're pushing for some form of engagement.
Well, I think one has to look at the reality. So, what chances are there of regime change? I would say that the regime changes can only come from beneath, from the Iranian people.
Within, right?
And I have no doubt whatsoever that the CIA is actively energizing opponents of the regime within Iran in various subterranean ways. That's what nation states do. I have no doubt that's happening, but there's no sign that it would succeed. There's no sign that the Ayatollah's power is diminishing. There's no sign that the Revolutionary Guard is losing power. If anything, since the assassination of General 3 years ago. The
Soleimani.
yeah. If anything, the Revolutionary Guard has gotten stronger. So I don't think that's going to happen. And you're dealing with elements in the diaspora. I'm sorry, I don't want to insult anyone, but it sort of reminds me of some of the people that support Donald Trump. I mean, they're irredentist. I mean, they're not really looking realistically at what might be good for Iran or what might be good for the United States. And I think this means a lot of really brave leadership, not the current, perhaps, Iranian leadership, but maybe someone like Khatami reappearing that might be able to talk to some reasonable Americans and look at restarting the Iran deal at an absolute minimum. Because Kerry's right. Kerry's right. If we could get the Iran deal restarted and actually lift some sanctions, at least on medical supplies and food, and roll back the centrifuges, expansion of centrifuge activity in Iran, then that's a start.
Right, right. No, I get it. And we've had this conversation within the diaspora worldwide. As you saw in the protests last year after Mahsa Amini's death, thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions. I think there's some 8 million diaspora expatriates all over the world. And somehow, as you said, a dentist, a journalist, an actor, and the former the crown prince came together as a de facto opposition group, and they even signed some agreements. And I heard a lot of conversation that they don't want to take power; they simply want to shepherd a democratic change in Iran. But that movement fell apart, in one form or another, and they failed to get either work together. I don't know what all the reasonings were, that the internal reasonings, but it fell apart, unfortunately. And so the diaspora is still looking for a leader that can unite them, and maybe to some extent the American government is looking for a leader that can shepherd the 8 million worldwide Iranians into some movement.
Well, they're not the only group, irredentist group in America. I'm thinking of Castro Cubans, for example, who are in a somewhat similar situation. They really want to oust the communist government in Cuba and replace it with whatever they want to replace it with, some kind of democracy or whatever. And it's just not going to happen. There are far too many factors that negate against any American support, certainly not for another Bay of Pigs. So we've got this strident group of Castro Cubans who basically now control most of the politics of the state of Florida. And they're a thorn in the side of American policymakers because while I think it'd be a great idea to lift the sanctions on Cuba entirely and deal with these people as a legitimate government in the Caribbean. It's not going to happen because of the irredentist Cubans. Same way that the diaspora, the Iranian diaspora, has to look or should look ahead at what's really possible and can be done. And if the first thing really is a lifting of the Iran, is a restarting of the Iran deal, I'm not sure that the diaspora is going to be of any help then. It might even be an opposition to it, and that would be a mistake.
Right. John Graham, thank you so much for joining us. This has been so informative. You've lived a life that is probably the envy of anyone that's gotten to know you, from Everest to all these world corners dealing with diplomatic issues. We didn't even get a chance to talk about the Israeli-Hamas war, but we'll do that next time. For now, thank you so much for your insights. Please come back to join us soon.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.